Hi, welcome to the State Farm information session today with UAGC Career Services. We're going to give it about 30 seconds since I just opened up the people so everybody can come in to the session. So thanks for being here and thank you for attending UAGC. We'll start in about 30 seconds. All righty, hello and welcome to today's information session with State Farm Insurance. My name is Warner Petzold. I'm an employer outreach specialist for the University of Arizona Global Campus. We're excited you could join us today to learn more about the exciting careers opportunities with State Farm Insurance. Before I turn the floor over to State Farm Insurance, I wanted to go over a few housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded. So for all of those that registered for today's information session, the recording will be emailed to you in a few days. We will take time to answer as many questions as possible during and at the end of the presentation. At the bottom of the screen is a QA button. You can submit questions with your name or anonymously to be answered live. We will do our best to get to as many questions as we can. However, if your question is not answered by the end of the presentation, you can email it to careerservices@uagc.edu, and we will follow up with State Farm Insurance to get any remaining questions answered. Also, feel free to engage in the chat. You can pose questions in the chat, and members of the Career Services team will be available to help answer questions throughout the presentation. If you have any technical difficulties, we recommend logging out of Zoom and logging back in. Now, I would like to introduce our guest employer. Joining us today is Latoya Wilson, Talent Acquisition Specialist at State Farm Insurance. Latoya began her State Farm career in January 2007, having had roles in underwriting, licensing, agency and marketing, learning, and human resources and development. During her tenure at State Farm, she has led in strategic initiatives that support adult learning, change adoption, employee engagement, employee development, and diversity and inclusion. Latoya has an active role in employer resources groups, including time spent as an ambassador, podcast host, and area leader for multiple ERGs. As talent acquisition specialist, Latoya spends most of her time in the field identifying top talent and connecting job seekers with new opportunities at State Farm. Latoya graduated magna cum laude with a BS in public relations. She also holds a master's in marketing and a chartered underwriter designation. Latoya, we are excited to hear your presentation and thank you for joining us today. I will go ahead and turn the floor over to you.
Warner, that was an amazing introduction. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Super excited to be here. So guys, a couple of things. This is going to be super informal. State Farm allowed me to join your session today because we want to tell you all the things about State Farm. What you see on your screen right now is a gigantic QR code. Grab your best friend, i.e. your cell phone, scan that QR code. It's going to ask you for your first name, last name, and email address. My ask is that you leverage an email address that you're going to check because it's going to put you in the talent neighborhood and allow you to receive updates about the information I'm sharing today. So if you get distracted, miss some information, don't worry. There'll be an email coming your way after today's session if you scan that QR code with a button for you to access a lot of the information I'm sharing today. Let's get this party started. Today, we're really going to hone in and focus on building your career with State Farm. You may not know who State Farm is, so let me tell you. We're the #1 auto and homeowner insurer in the nation, and we've been around for over 100 years. We just celebrated our 101 anniversary last year. So State Farm has been around the block, if you would like to say. We have over 52,000 employees, and it's growing because State Farm is hiring. We have over 19,000 agents in the field. Fun fact, State Farm has more State Farm agents than McDonald's has out in the market. So you're going to start seeing State Farm agents as you're out and about. We specialize in over 100 different products, but that's who we are as an organization. When most people think of State Farm, outside of thinking of Jake, of course, they think of selling insurance. But believe it or not, we're actually an employer of choice, an award-winning employer of choice, if you will. And we have a lot of different career opportunities, which is why I'm here today. A number one question I get about working at State Farm is, Latoya, do I have to sell insurance? And that's one of my favorite questions, because the truth of the matter is you don't. When you work at State Farm as an organization, right? Not as a State Farm agent, but on the operation side of things, there are so many career opportunities and paths for you to take. You're looking at a snapshot of just a wide variety of careers. Most people understand that claims and investigation, maybe underwriting and actuarial are departments that are available at State Farm. But because we're a Fortune 50 organization, there are various departments that you can choose from that you may be surprised that connect directly with your career path and that connect with the degrees that you're currently pursuing. Think research and data analytics. People asked me, do you have any tech jobs? Well, yes, we do. And we'll talk about those a little later. Customer service is what we do. We've been the #1 auto insurer in the nation for over 100 years because customers are our first priority. Human resources and development, accounting, finance, legal, compliance. Guys, we have an amazing in-house council of attorneys. So if paralegal and law is something that you're interested in, you may be surprised that State Farm has opportunities for you there as well. Of course, we have sales support, administrative support, marketing, communications, public affairs, and things of that nature. I tell people it's rare that I can't find a job for someone here at State Farm based on the degree and field of study, because what you're going to find is the skills and things that you're learning in your day-to-day coursework are going to transfer beautifully here at State Farm when you're thinking about a career in your future. Ways of working is something else I get questions about. A lot of times people want to know, Latoya, do you have remote positions? Well, I'm glad you asked. There's actually 4 primary ways of working, if you will, at State Farm. Let's go through them together. If you're looking at a job at our posting on our career site, jobs.statefarm.com, don't worry, I'll mention that for you again later, so don't worry about writing it down. You're going to see hybrid listed by a lot of the roles on our career site, jobs.statefarm.com. Hybrid means you're going to spend some time working in the office and sometimes working at home. So currently, our hybrid employees, they only spend 5 days in the office. I like to pause when I say that because some people like lean in and they ask themselves, did I hear that right? You did. So right now in a hybrid ways of working, after you've been fully trained, we're going to send you all of your equipment, your laptop, your monitor, your headset, your keyboard, everything you need to be successful comes to you at your home location. The only thing we ask that you have is high-speed internet and a quiet place to work, because you're going to be spending most of your time, if you're in a hybrid role, at your home. We only go into the office 5 times per month currently for our hybrid ways of work. The other ways of work you're going to see on our careers page is going to be a remote ways of work. That means you never get to see me face to face in real life. Remote means exactly that. You'll be in a remote area opportunity where you're going to be working 100% from home. Again, we're sending you all of your equipment, all your tools and things that you need to be successful to your home location. High-speed internet gets you plugged in, and you can do your job from the comfort of your own home. Proximity is a new term that if you're not familiar with insurance, that you may not be familiar with, but you will see proximity listed on some of our roles. Proximity means you're going to potentially be remote and in the field, if you will. We'll talk about the 4 hub locations in just a second, but proximity is critical and important, specifically to State Farm, because we like to be where our customers are, and that's going to be in the field. So for those claim roles, you're going to see proximity a lot, which means you're going to need to be mindful of the zip codes that are listed on some of those job opportunities to identify if you're in the proximity of that particular role. Last but definitely not least, you're going to have in-office opportunities. For those that love to be in the office 100% of the time, these are going to be the jobs that you're looking for. There are some career paths in State Farm that do require in-office availability 100% of the time, but it will note it on the job ad. So don't stress if you're looking for hybrid or remote work. We have plenty of those roles available to you. I mentioned the hybrid environment, so it's only fair that I talk to you about the locations that State Farm has available for you to work. While State Farm is enterprise-wide, think California to New York, if you will, or maybe I say California to Florida, right? There's 4 main locations that State Farm currently has a presence in. Bloomington, Illinois, that's our headquarters. That's the mother station, right? You also have Phoenix, Arizona, which is where I currently live. Dallas, Texas, which is where I was born and raised. I'll still say go Cowboys. And Atlanta, Georgia. Those are going to be our 4 what we call hub locations. So when you're looking at a role that says hybrid from a ways of work perspective, you want to be mindful if hybrid is connected to any of these 4 locations. Some people ask, Latoya, how close do I have to be to this location to be eligible for a role close to this location? 100 miles is going to be your sweet spot. So as you're looking to apply for jobs that are in one of these 4 locations, if it says hybrid, throw in your zip code in Google Maps or whatever mapping system or tool you like to leverage, and make sure that you're within 100 miles of that location. That will impact eligibility for the role itself. So important to note that location is important. In the event you're not next to any of these 4 locations, proximity or remote is what you're going to be looking for as we look at jobs on the career page. Don't worry, I'll show you how to do it in just a second. Let's talk benefits. So a lot of times when I'm talking to job seekers, they want to know outside of the salary, which is important, of course, what other benefits are available to me at State Farm? Well, the benefits package is one of my favorite things about working at State Farm. In addition to the competitive salary, we have an annual bonus and merit increase. We're what you call a pay per performance environment. That means every year, my leadership team is reviewing my performance and identifying what merit increase they're going to award me for my performance throughout the year. So every year I have an ability to increase my salary and receive a bonus annually, which is pretty amazing to be recognized in that regard. We also have some pretty amazing retirement planning, 401k contribution. Right now we're matching up to 7%, which is unheard of and unprecedented in today's market. You also get a financial advisor as an employee of State Farm that helps you allocate your deductions properly and really understand what those allocations mean and what that verbiage looks like to make sure that when it's time for you to retire, you're set up for success. Paid time off is a big deal. Paid time off is something that you're going to receive. Your benefits go into effect the first day of the first month after you're hired. So if I hired you today, next month on the 1st, guess what? Your benefits are fully accessible for you to take advantage of and use, including that paid time off and life leave. You're also going to get paid volunteer time. That means that volunteering and being a good neighbor in the field is something that you like to do. State Farm pays you to be away to do those activities. That's right. I get paid to go volunteer at my child's school as a chaperone for a field trip. We take team activities and we volunteer for things at the food bank or Habitat for Humanity. And State Farm actually compensates me and my team to go be away from work and serve in our community to do that. One of my favorite benefits. Tuition assistance. Listen, as a student, you know firsthand how expensive tuition can be, but it doesn't have to be. When you work with an organization like State Farm, you have access to programs like tuition assistance. Right now, our direct bill programs allows for $7,500 for your undergrad. Wait, we also contribute to master's programs up to $10,000 annually, as well as insurance designations. So you heard Werner mention that I have an insurance designation, which is comparable to a master's degree. Not only did State Farm compensate me and pay for that designation, they also paid for graduation, which, by the way, was in Hawaii. We'll talk about that later. We have many wellness programs, health programs, discounts. A lot of people want to know, do you receive discounts on your insurance if you work for State Farm? Well, we don't. We don't receive discounts on our insurance. But let me tell you, if you've ever heard of State Farm Stadium, they're in our 4 hub locations. We receive discount tickets to those locations, football games, concerts, all types of things. If they're happening there, we have access to discount tickets. And the company even raffles off tickets where you can enter your name in a raffle and win tickets to some of those events that are hosted in our State Farm stadiums. I don't have it listed here, but another great benefit is our credit union. If you bought a car recently or took out a loan recently, you know that rates are climbing. State Farm has a credit union, and as an employee, you have access to that credit union and the amazing rates that come with it. All right, so I know everyone's chopping at the bits and want to know, Latoya, what was that website you mentioned so we can look for these jobs and start applying? And how do I make that happen? Well, I'm glad you asked, friends. Here's the QR code again, just in case you were slow on the draw. So I want you to grab your best friend, i.e. your cell phone. If you didn't do it the first time, here's your second chance to do it. You won't get another. Scan this QR code, first name, last name, email address. It's going to put you in what we call our talent neighborhood. Now, this is a screenshot of the talent neighborhood, but I want to walk you through it. So let me help you navigate. If you go to jobs.statefarm.com, that's our career site. If you're like me, you're probably typing it now in your browser. That's fine. Save it as a favorite. There's a couple of tabs at the very top. You want to really look at working here. The benefits that I'm talking about now, they're going to be listed there. If you want to learn a little bit more about State Farm outside of the information I shared with you, again, the About Us page is going to be phenomenal for that. You're going to be able to look at locations, events near you, internships, which we'll talk about in a second, and the process, which we'll look at as well. But finding jobs is probably what you're most interested in. Based on your location, because you guys are global, I highly recommend when you're looking for a job at State Farm on our careers page, jobs.statefarm.com, that you take the time to search by your location. This is going to allow you an opportunity to see what's literally in your neighborhood, pun intended, to make it easier for you to do your search. Now, if you're like me and you're open to relocating, right? So I'm from Dallas, but I relocated to Arizona, then the world is your oyster. Search for jobs maybe by category, right? Maybe you're currently working on an enterprise technology or IT type certification or degree, and you're really interested in all of the IT type jobs here at State Farm. Well, you're in luck because we have plenty. Maybe your search would look like searching for specifically categories, jobs that are available in that IT department. It's going to pull up those jobs for you. And then you can take your time, read the job description, understand the roles, responsibilities, and qualifications. And then, as the youngsters say, shoot your shot, right? Something else I want you to make note of. So at the very bottom, there's a red button that says find jobs. That's the easy way to find the jobs. But I want you to pay attention to the button next to the red button at the very bottom of the screen. That says join our talent neighborhood. If you don't find a job that moves your heart or speaks to your soul, you want to make sure you join the talent neighborhood. Now, why is that important? It's important for a couple of reasons. One, if you join the talent neighborhood, it allows you to upload your resume. You absolutely want to do that. Our recruiters start in our talent neighborhood before they even post a job externally or internally for that matter. So you want to make sure your information in your resume is sitting in the bucket, if you will, for our recruiters to comb through it to see who's available and who's open to work and what skills and experiences do they have that are already in the neighborhood. If you are interested in us, that's where we start because we want to be interested in you as well. The other reason you want to join the talent neighborhood is because it allows you to set alerts to receive information and that firsthand alert when something in the department that connects to your degree path or career plan specifically comes available. So joining that talent neighborhood allows you to upload your resume and tell the system, I want to know every time State Farm posts an IT job because I'm competitive and I want to make sure that I can really apply and get connected to recruiters as soon as I possibly can. The other beautiful thing about joining the talent neighborhood is that it allows you to receive communications and information about things that are happening at State Farm. So if there's an event in your area, maybe there's a virtual career fair that State Farm is hosting, maybe there's an information session about a specific career or role that's new that you want to learn about, we'd like an opportunity to invite you to that. So you absolutely want to join the talent neighborhood. Now, by scanning that QR code today, something special is going to happen for you. If you apply for State Farm now or in the future and you scan that QR code, there's going to be something next to your name that says, hey, at some point they talk to a recruiter, they understand who we are as an organization, they have a good understanding about our ways of work and benefits. You might want to give them a second look-see, if you will. So again, if you haven't scanned that QR code before I go on to the next screen, highly recommend take out your phone and scan it. I'll give you a few seconds. All right, we're good to go. Let's talk about the process. So when I talked to your career services team, they said, LaToya, we have some pretty sharp students. We want you to spill the tea. Give us all of the information you can give us about being successful in working at State Farm. So in true spill the tea fashion, let's talk about the 5 steps to potential employment at State Farm. I want you to feel comfortable about what's going to happen, not if, but when you apply at State Farm. So applying at State Farm is actually fairly easy. Jobs.statefarm.com, that's where you're going to go. Once you identify the job that speaks to your heart, the application is going to be the first step. Some people ask me, Latoya, do I have to apply from your career site or can I apply from sites like LinkedIn or Indeed and things of that nature? It's totally up to you. We're going to receive that application if it's available, no matter what. So don't let that stop you. But applying is the first step in getting your foot in the door here at State Farm. Some people say, well, can I just send you my resume? You can, but it won't count as you applying. So I tell people you can, but I don't recommend it. Your first step is to apply. Now, I want to spend some time on the pre-employment assessment because while your resume is the key to the city, your pre-employment assessment will truly identify whether or not the gates open for you or not. With pre-employment assessment, there's typically two parts. So if you apply for a job at State Farm, I want you to pay close attention to your emails and text messages. So we're going to communicate three ways with you at State Farm. You're going to either receive an email from someone at State Farm. Be careful. Sometimes it goes into your spam. So you want to check on that. You could actually receive a text message from someone at State Farm. It's not a bot. Somebody real is actually sending you a text message, and a phone call. So make sure that you set up your mailbox. Don't be like me and clean your voicemail, because if it's full and someone's calling you and your voicemail is not set up and or your voicemail is full, then the recruiter can't get in touch with you. It's going to be critical. With your assessment, I mentioned there's two parts. The first part are going to be behavioral-based questions. If you answer them from a moral compass, you should be okay. Tell me about a time when, or if you've seen this, what would you do type situation. The second part of the assessment is a simulation. This is the part I want you to pay special attention to. The simulation is going to simulate, I was looking for a better word, but there it is, simulate an actual caller calling into you. Make sure you're in a quiet space where noise is at a minimum, where you can truly listen in. Be careful and try not to click off of the screen when you're participating in the assessment, because it's super sensitive and it will either time you out or score you unsuccessful. Once you're scored unsuccessful, you have to wait 60 days to repeat that assessment. So be careful. With the assessment, you're going to be listening to a caller and you're going to be capturing information that the caller is providing to you. This is critical because the majority of our work, especially if you're working in claims and or underwriting, you're going to spend time taking inbound calls from our customers at State Farm. A lot of times, if you're working in claims, you're helping customers make life go right because something has happened and life is not so right now. The simulation provides an opportunity for you to listen to that caller and capture information. People ask me, Latoya, how fast do I need to type? Is typing speed important? I will tell you, friends, speed and accuracy are equally important when you're thinking about completing the assessment for employment here at State Farm. You want to make sure that you're taking your time to listen to the information, but that you're also moving at a pace that allows you to capture the information and show your ability to both listen and execute at the same time. That's going to be critical. The next part of the process is interviews, if you will. So at State Farm, we can hire you as fast as maybe 30 days and as long as maybe, I don't know, a couple of months, depending on how fast you respond to the communications that are coming your way. After you're successful with the pre-employment assessment, because if you're watching this and enrolled at the University of Arizona Global Campus, you're going to be successful. The next step will be the on-demand interview. That on-demand interview is going to be a video interview where you're going to record yourself answering behavioral-based questions. Don't let that scare you or intimidate you. Again, these are behavior-based questions. I'm going to give you guys the first question. Tell me about yourself. Easy peasy. So have that one ready to go. The next 3 or 4 questions will be behavioral-based questions that truly focus in on potentially things like customer service, maybe your ability to navigate a large amount of information, how you prioritize. There may even be some questions sprinkled in there about coaching or receiving feedback, because State Farm is a coaching environment. We are here to learn, and developing our people is actually an organizational goal. So you're going to meet with your leaders frequently to talk about your development and how you can grow as an associate. When you're answering behavioral-based questions in that on-demand interview, I want you guys to leverage what we call the STAR format: situation, task, action, result. I'll say it again for those that are taking notes: situation, task, action, and result. That STAR format is going to set you up for success when you're responding to behavioral-based questions that are listed in that on-demand interview. So it may say something like, tell me about a time when you were working with a difficult customer. Maybe right now you're working at Starbucks, which is not insurance, but those skills are transferable, let me tell you. So leveraging the STAR format, your response could sound something like, oh, wow, a difficult customer. Well, I currently work as a barista at Starbucks, and during our lunch hour, things are busy. I remember during my first week working there, a lady came in and she had a list of orders with her, and she read off 6 orders, lightning speed. And I did my best capturing them. I took her name, got the orders, took her money, and sent her to the end of the counter, only to realize when she was picking up her order that the 6th drink that she ordered, I got totally wrong. She was livid. She only had 15 minutes to pick up the order and get back to the office. Her team was counting on her, and she was counting on us to get the order right because time is money. I took the time to ask her for the list in her hand. I knew if I could read what she had written down, then I could make it right. That's exactly what I did. I remade the drink and gave it to her. I also gave her a cake pop because, listen, who doesn't love good cake? I explained to her that it was my first week and I was doing my very best, and I would work harder to make sure that I listened closely to the order next time, and encouraged her to revisit us and come back. I recognize that things are going to happen, and when you're moving at a fast pace, sometimes you miss things. But I also realize in that moment that as long as I do my best to make things right by that customer, then I can save that relationship and maintain that business for us. I'm confident I can do the same thing for you at State Farm. As a result, I'm ready. I'm ready to take on new challenges. I'm ready to be in a fast-paced environment. I'm ready to engage customers who are moving at a fast pace because I'm just as fast. You see that? Situation, task, action, result. That's what you want to do when you're responding to these behavior-based questions in your on-demand interview. Now, I want you to be mindful that some positions won't require a face-to-face interview because a lot of our jobs are hybrid, right? So we're modeling that. Every now and again, you may have a panel interview. It'll more than likely be virtual. That'll be you, maybe on a system with other leaders in that position, interacting as if we're interacting today. For the most part, if you're applying for a job that says hybrid and you complete an on-demand interview successfully and you navigate to the next step in that process, it literally could be a phone call from a talent acquisition specialist or a recruiter like myself having a conversation with you. If someone from State Farm calls you, treat it as a real interview because we have the authority most of the time to hire you in real time. So just be mindful of that. That's also the time to get all of your questions out for the recruiter about pay, about training, about location, about roles, job description, you name it. If you have a State Farm recruiter on the phone, ask away. We're there for you to answer those questions that you may have. Now, the next thing you're going to receive if you've successfully completed the assessment, the on-demand interview, potentially that phone interview or conversation, is potentially a job offer. Review that job offer carefully. Make sure that the salary that you negotiated is the correct salary you see on your job offer. Make sure you have a clear understanding of your start dates and location when you're looking at that job offer. And then hit accept if everything aligns. If for whatever reason there's something that's not adding up in that job offer, reach back out to that recruiter. Guys, that's what we're here for. I also want you to be mindful that State Farm does conduct background checks. That's another question that I get often. Does State Farm run background checks? We absolutely do. So we run a background check through a third party. So if you're applying at a job at State Farm at jobs.statefarm.com, and you complete that process successfully, you will receive what we call a contingent job offer because it normally takes about 2 weeks for background to clear. I tell people, watch your email, watch your phone, maybe even your text message. If there's something that happens or comes up and we need additional information, or our vendor is looking for additional information from your background check, that's going to be the way that we're going to reach out to you to answer those questions or review that information with you to expedite that process to get you on and hired. All right, that was a lot. That was a mouthful, but I promised to spill the tea for you. We've covered a lot. We talked about who we are as an organization. Not only are we a Fortune 50 employer, but we're the #1 auto insurer in the nation. We talked about where to look for those jobs, jobs.statefarm.com. We talked about the ways of working, our locations, how to apply, where to apply. All right, I'm going to do you one solid because you logged in today. This QR code is a special QR code. This QR code, friends, is my digital business card. So now you have access to your own good neighbor. This is when you really want to scan. If you scan this QR code, it's going to pull up my Blink app. It will ask you to save me in your contacts. Save me. I'll be your good neighbor. It's going to provide a link to our career site, jobs.statefarm.com. My LinkedIn profile is also there as well. I'm giving you my phone number and my email address here at State Farm. Use it or lose it, kiddos. I want you to feel comfortable about reaching out to me. If you apply for a job here at State Farm, I'll be your good neighbor. If you have questions about the process, your portal will update. So you'll have access to your portal that you can check online to see where you are in that process. But for if whatever reason, it's just not moving, and maybe you feel like you're being ghosted, reach out to me. We are live people, real people looking at your resume, watching your videos. We want to know that you're connected. So this is your way to stay connected to a State Farm recruiter. I'm going to leave this up for a second. I saved some time deliberately to go through some Q&A. So let's begin maybe some Q&A. Questions that you might have about working at State Farm. Now's your time to ask the State Farm recruiter. Like I said, guys, I'm spilling all the tea about State Farm. Werner, I can't see the chat, so I'm going to lean on you guys to maybe help me out with the chat. Maybe I stop sharing my screen so I can see. That's what I'll do. I'll stop sharing my screen so I can see the chat, and then we can just go through some questions, and I'll get us started. One of the first questions people want to know when they hear that I work at State Farm is, Latoya, do you know Jake? Well, he's my cousin. Not really, guys. He's not my cousin. But we do know Jake. Jake is a hired actor at State Farm. We do get to see Jake every now and again when he's running promotions and specials and things of that nature. But
That's cool.
Who needs Jake when you have Latoya? Another question I get often is about internships. A lot of people don't know that we have paid internships at State Farm. That's going to be really critical, especially for students like yourselves that are in the role, specifically because you guys are all over the United States, right? So if you're going to jobs.statefarm.com, you can sort categories by internships. We have paid internships. They typically run through the summer, May through August. I think they're 11 to 12 weeks. They're paid. Salary looks from like $20 an hour to about $28 an hour. We don't offer internships, but the internships are your way to get access to State Farm, to our State Farm leaders, understand the culture and the environment. And the beautiful thing is that we have a college to corporate pathway. So our goal when you intern at State Farm is really to hire you. So if you have an opportunity and the flexibility to participate in an internship at State Farm, we want to make sure that you're aware that those opportunities exist and you take advantage of them. I actually have a few internships still left on the board. So if you're looking for an internship to participate in this summer, really want to encourage you to take a look at those internships. For those that are not ready for internships, our internships typically go live the first week in September. So if you have your phone out, set a reminder in your calendar right now, look at State Farm paid internships for September. That way, when they go live on our careers page, jobs.statefarm.com, you'll be ready to go and know that. You guys are going to have that website laid down in your head. You're going to memorize it and know it. I see some good questions popping into chat, so I'm going to head over there so we can talk about some of the questions that we have that are there. Are all your roles? Go ahead.
I have one of them here that I wanted to share that was asked earlier, Latoya, which was what are some of the roles State Farm that would align with an MBA grad?
I love it. So guys, I have a master's in marketing. I currently work in human resources and development. So I would say all roles, we are very intentional about our leadership. Claims and underwriting are going to be maybe the 2 points of entry. So maybe let me start there and maybe talk about what those are and what they really mean. Underwriting is going to be the front end of the business, risk analysis, really matching risk to rate, reviewing reports, analytics, things of that nature, really helping State Farm protect our brand and the integrity of our organization. The other side of the business is our claim side of the business, right? This is probably the largest growing department here at State Farm. If you're looking for a job today, that might be the easiest entry point into State Farm. Claims is going to be truly customer service, policy review, working with our policyholders, looking at legal ramifications, guidelines, and things of that nature within that claim sector. Remember, we talked about making life go right. So if you're working on a master's in business, you're going to really slide into any role successfully. You should be competitive with some of those skills and experiences to slide into some of those roles. Anything that you see right on that slide that I showed with career paths, they're leaders in that role. So if you're working on an MBA and maybe you're interested in leadership, that will be an opportunity for you to look. I currently have some claims leadership positions on the board, right? So some of those competencies and skills that you've taken in those coursework should be competitive and present when you transfer over to State Farm from a student to an associate. look for things on our career page that say analyst. Any analyst role, they're going to really be heavy in project management and leadership. So you may be surprised there as well. But as Werner mentioned in my bio, I came to State Farm as an auto underwriter. Guys, my undergrad was in journalism, right? So knew absolutely nothing about insurance. And like you, I came to State Farm right out of college. So I graduated from college, ran into a recruiter and said, I don't want to sell insurance, leave me alone. And he said, great, because I don't need you to sell insurance. And the rest is history. So 17 years later, I've had, as you heard, several positions. So really great question for my MBAs out there. There's something for you,
Latoya, based on what you just told me about your past and all that, and also the kind of two-part question. So bouncing back over to internships, what would that look like as far as all of the type of internships that you do recruit for? And then the next thing would be, does State Farm have some, because I used to work at AT&T for 14 years. I know a lot of other big companies have these things where students can then apply and then they can go through different portions of the company to learn about the different areas and then get placed. So with being flexible, of course, in the United States, does State Farm have that as well?
So great question about our internships. And that's why I said set a reminder. So with our internships, I would say they're three-pronged, if you will, right? So we have internship opportunities unique to all of our specialty departments that you saw, right? So financial services, marketing, human resources, no matter what your degree, you should be able to find an internship at State Farm that closely aligns to some of those skills and experiences to make you successful. The beautiful part about our internships, like I said, they're three-pronged. We're going to inundate you in our real work. So there's no running to get coffee and taking notes in meetings. There's none of that. When you come to State Farm and participate in an internship, you will have a deliverable. We want to make sure that you are getting your hands dirty and working. You'll be a part of a team with associates that are full-time at State Farm. So you will feel a part of that team. You'll integrate with our culture. You'll attend some of those team meetings. You'll meet with our leaders and our peers like we do and our other business areas. So you'll get a real good look and feel for how that department contributes to the organization as a whole. So in addition to having a deliverable, you'll also have some training unique to a certain competency. Maybe the competency of the summer is leadership. So we're going to come in, put a curriculum together to help you maybe engage and learn from that leadership perspective and how we lead at State Farm. The other element for that internship is going to be business acumen. We know that insurance can be a foreign language. Unless you're risk or actuary, it's rare that we run into people that truly go to school and get a degree that specialize in insurance, but we recognize that. So part of your internship is really enhancing that business acumen about risk and analysis in the insurance environment from a holistic perspective, regardless of whether you're in claims or underwriting or financial services, whatever department you're in, you're going to pick up that business acumen to really better understand who we are as an organization, who we are as an industry, and then how what you do helps us be successful. Like I talked about that college to corporate pathway, our goal truly is to present a job offer to you when the internship is complete. So we invite you to come back. If you are competitive and do a great job the first year, you'll receive potentially an invitation to come back maybe year two. And then after year two, that's when you'll potentially receive an offer letter to start in an entry-level position. Now, another question I get is, Latoya, I'm looking at the job site and it's asking for 3 years experience, 5 years experience, 8 to 10 years experience. Latoya, where are the entry-level jobs? Well, I'm glad you asked in your head, right? The entry-level jobs, a lot of times in those specialty departments, think finance, marketing, HR&D, things of that nature, are historically preserved for those internship opportunities because our goal is to path you through. So if you're looking on jobs.statefarm.com, you're not going to see a lot of entry-level positions in what we call our specialty departments. You will see some entry point positions in underwriting, claims, and customer service. Because if you've had customer service experience in other arenas or other organizations, those skills should transfer seamlessly over to State Farm to help you be competitive. So great question.
I love
Did you
the
have
training
a question that stood out to you? Because I see a few there. Werner, did you have a couple of questions that?
Well, I was just going to say that I love the fact that you mentioned the training earlier too. So that's really great. A point of emphasis for State Farm. I mean, they're going to train you to get to where you are so you can be successful. And I'm sure there's ongoing training throughout the year and as you go and all the different areas that you went. So the possibilities are endless. It's obvious based on your background. It's amazing. So I have another question here. It says, what are some of the, what are any remote roles outside of data scientists?
Listen, great question, but it sounds like you already did your research. Somebody went to jobs.statefarm.com, selected the category remote, and that's where they saw data scientists. Guys, that is going to be the bulk of our remote type positions, because if you're in IT, if you're a data scientist, software engineer, then you know your head is down behind the scenes, you're coding, right? So the interactions you're having with people is going to be slim. For the most part, the bulk of our positions, I'd probably argue 80% of our positions or more are going to be in that hybrid bucket, which is why we spent so much time talking about what hybrid looks like. I saw another question that came through that says, hey, outside of hybrid, how much flexibility do you have? Hybrid is going to be the most flexibility that you're going to see, right? You're going to work from home, if you will, and only go into that office location 5 times a month. But I'm thinking when you're asking about flexibility, maybe you're thinking about time. So you also want to be mindful of the role itself that you're posting for. We have shift work, if you will. So if you're in a call center or a contact center, be mindful of that if the role says customer service. I tell people bankers' hours are normal hours when you're thinking of a specialty type role, right? 8 to 4:30-ish. We work 7 hours and 45 minutes here at State Farm. It's beautiful. From a call center perspective, you may have a role that could be from 6 a.m. to maybe 8 p.m. But because we're enterprise-wide, right? California to Florida, we have people uniquely strategically positioned to take care of our customers in various time zones. So right now, we don't have any overnight work, if you will. First, second, third shift is what we're looking at. But that third shift potentially is over by 8 p.m. In some instances, maybe 10, depending on time zone changes and shifts. But depending on that particular career path or role, that's where you're going to talk to that recruiter about what that looks like. Someone asked about paying for insurance designations. Absolutely. So
I saw that. I was going to ask you that.
Yeah, COU, CPCU, AINS, SHRM. If there's designations that are specific to your actual career path, I'm in HR. If I want to take an HR designation, when I tell you State Farm is so supportive when it comes to our development, you'd be surprised how many programs we have available to us. If you're here and maybe you came into claims, but tech is the place you want to be, we have certificates and things that we will compensate and pay for you to take and get acclimated to that environment. So yes, and yes, there's opportunities to grow from a development perspective once you're here at State Farm on State Farm's dime. Great questions.
I saw that too with the licenses. If you need to surrender current licenses or what have you, somebody obviously who works.
Let's talk licenses. Can we do that?
Apparently, and there's another one here that says if you're licensed, are there categories for those job opportunities?
Let's do it. All right, guys. So let's talk licenses. So first and foremost, I repeat, do not run out and go get your license because of today's session. That'd be beautiful, but listen, no need. If you apply and are hired at State Farm in a position that requires you to have a license, right? So I used to work in the field as an underwriting specialist. I had a PNC license, a producer's license, if you will. If you're hired in claims in some type of capacity, then you will potentially need a claims adjuster license. Regardless of the license that you need, if a license is required for you to do your job, State Farm is going to pay for that license during your training. So let's hang out and talk about that for a second. When you start a job at State Farm's going to pay you your full salary during training. There's none of this partial salary for a certain time period. No, if we hired you at a salary at your start date, even though you're going right into training, we're going to pay your salary while you're in training. We're also going to pay for your license while you're going through what we call licensing. In the event you have a license already, we have a licensing team here at State Farm that will help you understand what designated home state you need. They will help you understand what additional licenses you need, maybe what additional continued education you need, the credits to maintain those licenses. We are poised and positioned to help you be successful once you obtain those licenses. So no need to go get them prior to working at State Farm. Once you're employed at State Farm, we will help you obtain those licenses and maintain those licenses throughout your career. If something needs to be surrendered, our team will help you as well. So guys, no need to go do that. Someone asked, if I have a license, what job should I look for? Great question. Claims, if you have a claims adjuster's license, then you're going to look for roles that are in claims and or customer service. It may tell you must be able to obtain a license for employment. That doesn't mean you need to go get it. That just means you'll need to have it. Those are going to be the jobs that you'll probably be competitive for. I'm going to pause for the cause and talk about resumes. So I saw one of those positions come through. So a student asked, hey, how can I showcase my experience? And I'm going to connect the dots for you. How do I showcase my license? All right, really fast, guys, because I want to make sure that I save time for other questions that are coming through. let's spend about 3 minutes on resumes, because you didn't ask, but I think that's where your mind is going. At State Farm, we currently are looking at resumes by hand. That means every resume that comes in, a real recruiter is screening that resume. We're actually watching on-demand videos, face-to-face as well, or in person as well, if you will. For your resume, ditch the summary. We're not reading it. We don't need it. Don't need a summary. Replace that summary with skills, not just the basic skills. Think hard skills versus soft skills. If you have skills in certain software and certain technology that are unique to your particular field, do you want to list those skills? Because if a recruiter is really looking to identify if you're competitive for a role, those skills are what we're going to be looking at first. Because remember, we want to see if they're transferable to the things that we're doing at State Farm, and listing some of those hard skills are going to make you potentially more competitive than maybe someone who doesn't have skills in Xactimate or Xactware or something like that, right? If you're a coder, list the languages that you're proficient in: Java, Python, C++, all those things, right? Instead of the experiences and skills. Now, if you're a traditional student and you're in school, or maybe you're non-traditional, and maybe you're currently enrolled in school, maybe you've had an internship, list that bad boy. We want to see it. Maybe you're proud of your GPA. List that bad boy. We want to see it, right? That tells me as a recruiter that you're committed to your coursework, you're taking your study seriously, and you're a continuous learner. Maybe there's some specific coursework that's unique to the job that you're applying for. Maybe you just wrapped coursework or lab work on leadership, and you're applying for a leadership job. List it. Again, it's going to allow the recruiter to see that those skills and experiences potentially directly align to the job that you're posting for. If you're listing jobs on your resume, the goal is to keep it to one page. Trust me, we're probably not reading page 2 or 3. One page is all you need. People say, Latoya, you want me to list my career in one page? Great question. I really don't. So maybe 5 to 10 years back, if you have to, that's what I'm asking you to list on your resume. When you're listing your resume out, think results. So I tell people, pause, think about how were you measured for success in that role. That's what you want to capture on the resume, because that allows you to list results on the resume that speaks to the recruiter. So maybe you were in a customer service job before. Maybe it was a call center. Were you rewarded for your call handling time? Were you rewarded for your customer service? Those are the things you want to call out. We can look up a job description. We want you to call out how you executed successfully in that role, because again, it's going to help us see how those parallels to the jobs we have at State Farm. Any clubs that you're involved in, get connected, volunteer for clubs. If you're connected in any clubs, fraternities, sororities, list those things down, because again, those are leadership skills that are going to show and highlight and transfer smoothly over from your resume to potentially a career at State Farm. It could be a differentiator from you and someone else I'm looking at if I see coursework, club engagement, service projects, hobbies, and things of that nature. So think about the things you do outside of work and maybe outside of school. So any volunteer opportunities, any religious organizations, list it. And not just that you're a member, list the way that you're contributing and making that organization better on your resume. Those are going to be the things that stand out. All right. Keep them coming. What other questions do you see having there?
Love all these information. We say it all the time, Latoya, and you're just bringing it home. Everything that we talk about all the time. So I'm going to switch it up here for a little bit, because I have a couple of military people. And granted, you know, this might be a more designated towards the military recruiters, but just in case, it's worth asking. So one of the people are asking, if you have a security clearance, does that bypass the background check process?
It doesn't. It'll probably just make it a little bit easier, because we love our military family. So if you're in the military, again, list that on your resume. We love it. But no, the security clearance won't bypass it. It'll probably just expedite the process. So great question, but
and then no worries. That's great answer. The other one is regarding, and I'm not sure if you're aware of the Skill Bridge program, where they can release people 6 months in advance from the military. Does State Farm have a Skill Bridge program?
We don't. I was just on base here. Luke Air Force Base is here in Arizona. Yes, I was on base a couple of weeks ago, and we had a lot of conversation about it. We don't have a Skills Bridge program. We don't have apprenticeship. The closest thing we have is going to be that internship. And I know that doesn't help at all times, right? But the good news is, if you're looking for a Skill Bridge and you take a Skill Bridge in customer service or in IT, and you have those skills underneath your belt, then you know specifically what you're looking for when you're on our website, jobs.statefarm.com, for you to apply to get connected to those things. You absolutely want to list any apprenticeships and Skill Bridges that you participate in on your resume, so then we can see it and connect those dots. Great questions, guys. Keep them coming.
This one is actually very applicable to a lot of people, and I'm sure you've heard it a bazillion times. But Norisha, of all things, she currently works at AT&T with a degree in HR, and she's asking, well, what would be a position that I could apply for to get my foot in the door?
I love it, right? So when we're talking about entry point positions, right? So not entry level. I want to be clear. So a lot of people say, what entry level positions do you have? That's probably going to be customer service specialist one that you're going to see. That job is going to start running around 20 bucks an hour, right? The entry points are very different because we want you to have some customer service experience and background to be competitive in those roles. So I want to be clear, but your two entry points, friends, are going to be either underwriting or claims, right? You can also come in our customer service roles, but a lot of those will be entry level, so the salary may not be as competitive or may not meet your salary requirements or budget. Let's pause for the cause. I'm surprised no one has asked about salary. Let's talk about it. On some of our jobs, you're going to see a salary range. So when you go to jobs.statefarm.com, maybe you pulled up claim specialist. Maybe I pick on that job for a second. If you pulled up a claim specialist position, right now you're going to see that it's listed as hybrid. You're also going to see that it's listed as fire/auto. Those would be the potential segments you can work in. Anytime you see fire at State Farm, don't dial 911, nothing's on fire. Fire is comparable to our term for, think building, if you will. So you could be handling claims, taking care of customers that have potentially had a loss either on the auto sector or maybe a building or homeowner sector. If you pull up that particular job requisition, you're going to see a salary range. I think right now it's showing 59 to 79. That's a pretty big range. Most people say, LaToya, like, I want the top of the range. How do I get the top of the range? Well, I'm going to say be prepared to negotiate your salary when you get a recruiter on the phone. But also be aware that someone at the top of that salary range is dominating. They probably have all the skills and experiences that are listed there, and they've probably been executing in the industry in that role specifically for a certain number of years. So coming in at the top of that salary range, you're going to have something under your belt that's going to match, right, that salary to experience and skills that's going to make it make sense. For the most part, you may find yourself closer to the bottom of that salary range if you're negotiating, but don't be afraid to negotiate. If you pulled up another role, I think our underwriting role was listed last week, you would see that that salary range is listed. I think it was listed at $54,000 a year. And it said specifically non-negotiable. So if you're looking at salary ranges, I would say don't waste your time. In full transparency, don't waste our recruiters' time. If the salary range you see on that job ad is outside of your budget, keep pushing. If the salary range is within your budget, from a salary perspective, be prepared to negotiate. I tell people the best way to negotiate is to have your resume in front of you when you're having that conversation. So asking for a higher dollar amount just because that's what you currently make at your current job is not going to cut it. But having a conversation about the skills and experience that you bring over to State Farm and being able to articulate how you're able to execute and State Farm's able to benefit from those skills and experiences day one from hiring you is going to make you much more competitive and successfully negotiating that salary than anything else. So have your resume ready to go, have your talking points on skills and experiences when you're talking salary negotiation. Be mindful of those salaries. Now you're probably asking yourself, LaToya, what about the jobs that don't list a salary? Those are going to be the jobs that are going to have maybe a higher expectation when it comes to experience in that field, and the recruiter can give you a range. That range is probably going to be much wider depending on what level you're coming in at, but the recruiter can help you with that. Worst case, Google comparable roles for salaries, and we're extremely competitive, so it's fair to assume that we would be in a line with the industry standard for some of those salaries.
Great advice. And then I have one here that kind of is similar to what we just asked a moment ago, but it kind of speaks to for those that are pursuing a particular degree, say at our university, but yet they want to have experience that they can then share if they do and go apply to a State Farm, obviously. So the question here is, are there any roles that will benefit while working on a bachelor's in information technology at UAGC?
Yeah, so I would say if you're currently working at information technology, I saw another question there about cybersecurity. You want to get an internship as fast as you possibly can, because the challenge I run into, right, full transparency, the challenge I run into with my college students that are currently working on a degree in IT is that you're going to be competing with people who have already secured that degree and potentially experience in that field. That's who you're competing with for those roles that you see on jobs.statefarm.com. When you secure an internship, it allows you the opportunity to get your foot in the door, build the relationship, demonstrate your brand, your current skills, upskill, right, while you're at State Farm, and truly work to earn a full-time offer. So that way, when you've secured your degree, you're not concerned about where you're going to work. you already have an offer in hand potentially if you've executed and demonstrated proficiencies and competed for that role successfully. So are there roles that you can work on or opportunities for you to work in while you're securing a degree? Not really, outside of the internships, because remember, we don't do skill bridge. I don't have apprenticeships. Yeah, that's probably going to be the best way to get your foot in the door in a specialty type department outside of underwriting or claims. I do love the question though.
It was a great question, and you have provided so much in-depth information that everyone needs to hear that. It doesn't matter where in the phase of your life is, that they need to hear these things. So we are so appreciative of the fact that you have come here today and spent your day to give everybody these amazing tips so that they can apply at State Farm. So thank you again, LaToya, for that. I just want to sum up and say that if you want to connect with State Farm Insurance and other organizations that are actively hiring or for full-time positions and internships, much like LaToya mentioned today, please log into Handshake through your student portal. We recommend checking Handshake and UAGC Connect regularly for more career services events. Regarding this State Farm information session in a few days, you'll receive a follow-up email with this link to the recording and information about State Farm Insurance careers. If you have any questions for the career services team on your resume, cover letter, or job search, please email careerservices@uagc.edu or log into Handshake through your student portal to explore more resources. Many thanks again to LaToya from State Farm Insurance for joining us today. And many thanks to you, our students and graduates, for attending UAGC. If you have 1 minute to hang on, at the close of this information session, you'll be directed to complete a quick confidential survey. If your responses will guide us in planning future employer information sessions, career fairs, and events. If you're unable to complete it now, the survey will be mailed to you with a copy of the recording. Thank you for attending this event today, and we look forward to seeing you at more career services hosted events. Everyone have a wonderful day. Thank you again, LaToya, for the amazing presentation today. Bye-bye.